Welcome, Mark Lane Holbert and Bob Shea to Pastel Camino. It's from those who doesn't know these beautiful human beings. They are the co-founders of the Recovery Camino, and we will get ahead and talk about that. And it's really, really a pleasure to have you here to talk about something so special as such as the Camino. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for your work. So let's start from the beginning. Um, in both of your personal experiences, how did you find about Camino? What was your first introduction to the Camino of St. James, to the way of St. James?
Mark?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here. Well, Bob and I, we are pilgrim partners in some ways. I started walking back in 2015, and of course, as you know, once one walks and gets a feel for what it's like to be a pilgrim, you can't help but share that experience. So Bob was a friend whom I knew well, and we were both involved in 12-step recovery work. And so we're both really into spiritual growth. And this idea of being a pilgrim, not a tourist, but a pilgrim on a spiritual journey really appealed to both of us.
Yeah. Okay, so so like Mark said, we were friends, and Mark actually told me he walked on it, and he said there was a movie, of course, you know, right? Of course. Anyway, so somebody who's not watching this, the movie was The Way, right, with Martin Sheen, and it was a catalyst for me. Although looking back at it, I could critique it a lot of critique. But the point was it led me there. And I gave myself 4 days to contemplate before I bought my tickets. And then I'm a musician, so I cleared up my whole month, and I walked to Portuguese.
So a small story about the movie. So I still don't know what why how I came to realize that I needed to decide the Camino. I don't know, but one day in 2016, I left my job. I left the job that I had, and I was working as a salesman in Barcelos on the Portuguese Camino, and that day, since the moment I left my job, I came to the midtown, and don't know why until today. Don't know why. I started to talk to pilgrims, and the first ones that I talked was a couple from Australia, and for me to realize that someone from Australia, from the other part of the world, to get a train to come back to Portugal and Spain and to walk to arrive in Santiago, that was really mind blowing for me, you know. And that was the moment. It was on it was on a Thursday. On a Thursday, and since that moment, I decided to walk to Camino. And the first thing that I have done it when getting back home was watching the movie. And from the moment, it's my favorite movie ever. You know, my favorite movie ever, and I know almost every line of the movie.
Oh, is that right? Well,
Yeah.
there are so many good ones. You know, there are so many good
Yeah,
Camino movies now.
yeah.
But
There's so I'm kind of a fan of history, and it's in Spanish, a series from 2016 that is called The End of the Camino, and it's from the historical points from the Middle Ages and how the pilgrimage had became what is today, and the beginning of the cathedral. And for me, it's not quite so well known as this one, but for me, it's one of the most beautiful documentaries, films, movies that have ever been made about Camino. Um, so let's go ahead. So for me, in that first Camino, it was like open my horizons. You know, Mark, we lost you. And when at some point of that Camino, I was eating dinner with a girl from Venezuela, uh, a German guy, an Italian young guy like me. That was really, really special for me. As a person that never have left Portugal uh, before that moment, to have dinner with four different people from four different countries in the world, that was really, really, really special. And it was kind of my first big introduction of what is the Camino. And then before that, I met a German guy. It was my first pilgrim that I met on the Camino. It was a German guy. I don't know if this is true or not, but this German guy, he told me that he was living on the Camino. This was in 2016. Uh, for the time being of 9 years and 4 months, he was living walking on the Camino. And for you to realize, as the same as the couple from Australia, to get a plane and come to walk to Portugal, is the same for you realize a German guy walking 9 years and 4 months. That was okay. There's something here. There's something here. That's when I realized that the Camino is really, really something special. So,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
when did you realize after your first moments walking that okay, this is a spiritual journey that can heal? What was the moment when you realized it? What was the question is, what has the Camino given to you that you realize that okay, this could help me really be a healing process?
Well, Bob, if you don't mind, very briefly, I first entered the Camino around the time when I was in discernment. I was training as a Franciscan brother, and through various people had heard about some of the effect of opening the mind. And one of the big spiritual principles in recovery is openness and willingness. So our goal is to really find that space of being willing to open the mind and being willing to see others' point of view, to get outside of oneself. And more than anything, the Camino for me was an experience in getting outside of myself. As you mentioned, engaging with different ways of seeing the world and different paths that people follow, not just physically, but spiritually on the Camino. And every time you hear a different story, it changes you. You take on a bit of that, you grow. So that exposure to international pilgrims and people who are spiritual seekers is really beneficial for anyone struggling in life with relationships, with addictions, with grief and loss, all of these elements of being human. So I think that was the hallmark for me when I realized that very first day, like you, talking with so many pilgrims that have such different viewpoints.
Bob.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's a great question. I think with like any adventure, I found myself in Madrid going, what is this? Where am I? And why am I doing this? And how do I get from here to there? And of course, those are all questions that I ask myself frequently. If I don't, I don't grow. But the first time, I think really the first time I felt that it was a spiritual experience right from the get-go when I started thinking about doing it. But it's when I turned around in Porto on the beach with a gal named Joy. And Joy was from Austria. We never forget these faces or names, right?
Yeah.
And I turned around about 15 minutes after meeting Joy, walking up the beach, and it looked a little industrial there. And I said, boy, that's ugly. And she said, that looks like home. And it struck me right there that my world was very, very small, and that it was about to open up. And that's what it does for me now. Mark laid out beautifully the recovery and and the transformation. And it started right there that I'm walking with internationals. I'm walking with people who have a totally different, just like in our meetings of recovery meetings.
Yeah.
I'm walking that path with people in recovery from, they might be, you know, I might not like them, but I have to love them.
Yeah.
You know, and if they are in need of help, I need to be there for them. And that's pretty much right there with Joy was when I started to change.
It is really, really outstanding. Let me tell you about something that's happened to me a few months ago. So last year, I walked 3 different caminos. I walked in August. I walked the Camino San Salvador that starts in Leon and goes up to Oviedo and then on to the Primitivo for the second time. And I don't know if you know this, but when you arrive from a Camino de Santiago, um, you can get a Compostela, but dedicated to others. You know, you can get a Compostela, and you can like dedicate them to people that had passed away or it's injured and cannot walk. And when I learned about this, I had a really, really big friend of mine um, that is from Spain. He lives in Seville. And I met this guy while being hospitalated on the Albergue. And for that time in 2019, there were uh, a few Spanish pilgrims walking the Portuguese from Portugal. Now there are growing a lot, but from the moment on, not as much. And I don't we really really connect well. And we made friendship from that moment on. And I was last June, last year in June, I was visiting him in Sevilla. Um, and from January, February, I know this guy was very sick. I didn't know what he had, but I know that he was very sick. And when I was meeting them, this guy in Sevilla, he told me that he had cancer. So from that moment, I decided to walk my next Camino in his name, to walk the Camino for him. So that's what I've done. So that Camino Salvador, more the Primitivo, both the my pilgrim passports and both of the Compostela, I dedicated to Antonio. And there's so he lives in Sevilla, um, and he works for the city hall. And everything here, there's like this big race in 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 that town called Sevilla 10. And so every single year there's a different shirt for the same race. And this guy Antonio walks every single day of the Camino with several of that shirts. Okay, so on the first day of the Camino, getting out of Leon, I started with a Spanish guy from Valencia. We started walking, but then I realized that I had a different rhythm, and he stayed a little bit behind, and I went on my own rhythm. And after like half an hour, I met four pilgrims, and I met four pilgrims from Sevilla. We had chatting about normal stuff of the Camino. We chat about like 10 minutes, and then I get to get on my own rhythm again. Um, that was it. On the first night of the Camino, I had arranged with the Valencia, the guy from Valencia, that we get dinner together. But then he arrived really really hurt, and he had to left the Camino that moment. So I was getting my dinner, but I was alone. And these two couples from Sevilla, they saw me and they invited me to have dinner with them. So we are getting dinner, talking about and I offered them a small thing from Portugal, a roasted chicken that is very very typical from Portugal. And that was it. On the next day, I walked the stage alone, and I met them. I met them uh, again on the place that we stayed for that night. And then on that day, realized that was maybe the last time that we see each other, because we will from that moment do the we'll sorry we'll have to we will do different stages. So one of that guys, Jose Luis, he went to the room and went to pick up something, and then came back and offered me a shirt. Can you imagine how it was, the shirt that he offered me?
Church? A what?
A shirt, a t-shirt.
A shirt.
A
Oh,
shirt. Yeah, he offered me a shirt. Let me show you how it was a shirt. Just a moment. That is.
Very cool.
If you can see, this was a shirt that he offered me. It says Sevilla 10.
Oh, very
Sevilla
nice.
10. It was
Yeah.
exactly like that, the ones that my friend that I was working for, he goes on to Camino with exactly like that shirt. And that for me was a moment that until now I can describe it. It was everything that I could expect from a Camino, you know. Was really, 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 really a moment. Before we talk about more exactly about your Recovery Camino project, can you tell me some story that you lived on the Camino while walking that is really, really special for you both, please?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Bob.
Oh, they're almost too numerous, too many.
Yeah,
Too many. I mean, almost every step. If I live in gratitude as often as I want to, with looking around. But what is, well, I'll tell you, here's one. I was in Santiago, and there was a man playing music. He had long dreads, and I'll make this really short, long dreads, and he had 5 strings on a 6-string guitar. And he was homeless. And I said, I'm not going to give you any money, but I'll buy you strings for your guitar. And he took me to a guitar store, and I bought him strings, and we talked on the way. And he said, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to the Museum of Art. That was Madrid, Museum of Art. And he said, I'll take you there. And so I went with him, and it turns out he was an attorney, and he was homeless. And so he fell really far. And when he brought me to the Museum of Art, he went in with me. And because he was an attorney, he was cultured, you know?
Yeah.
And he went to all of the frescoes. He went to all of the paintings and said, this was the King of Spain. This was it. And he explained all of the art until he must have been known there, because he would put his finger almost so close to it that they got very nervous and they kicked him out. But that's one of those moments where an interaction between 2 people that would never have happened. And I was open for it, and so was he.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, so as you were telling your story, I thought about how the Camino strips us down. We can only take what we carry on our backs. And I have a lot of stories that relate to that. But perhaps one of the ones that's most powerful is similar to Bob's story. I volunteered at the Pilgrim House one summer, and there were a few people that I knew that walked because they were recovering from something for which they were willing to give up everything else to seek that healing on the Camino. And one young man was going away from an abusive situation, and he was willing to give up job and financial security and his home and his health care, everything from his home country in Argentina, just to be on Camino, just to be on that spiritual search. And that bravery, that devotion really impressed me in this specific young man, because I think about all the things as I walk that I have to depend on. And although I'm just carrying the things in my backpack, which are a few shirts, a toothbrush, it really makes you feel in communion with everyone else, because you're all very similar. You're just carrying what's on your back, including that young man who was carrying very little and had very little. Really, we're both just able to walk as far as we can walk, and then dependent on the hospitality of the hospitaleras, of the albergues, of the churches, of the people that feed us and house us as we walk. I mean, I may have a bit more money to pay for an albergue, but if it's a donativo or something like that, you're all on the same plane. And so that, for me, that communion with people like him is really powerful.
That is amazing. So, what you learned on the Camino that led you to co-found Recovery Camino, please?
Would you like
that's a great question. So Bob, actually, I'll let him share about how it began, but I just want to share our mission. Our mission is to guide individuals along the path of recovery and spiritual transformation through the pilgrimage experience. And that's recovery is all context. And we do it through this 12 spiritual principles just to give us this kind of guide. And that guide that I found as I walked for my Camino, which was about 12 days, I thought, how can I focus on a spiritual principle each day, or let them build on one another? And that I feel like that is the walk that we are all on, that we're trying to build these spiritual principles in our lives that can change us into the person that we want to be for ourselves and for others that we love and for the world. So that is really part of the reason that I wanted to devote my time to this, and was really on board when Bob thought about taking others in recovery along on the Camino. So Bob, maybe you could share a bit more.
Yeah, so thank you for the question. By the way, thank you for what you're doing as well. Yeah, I was talking with a friend of mine. I have an Airbnb in this house, and people just stay right in one of the rooms here. And I had a Zen Buddhist monk stay with me, who is a veteran pilgrim all around the world. And he, although he is not in recovery from alcohol, we were talking about recovery, and we were talking about caminos, and we were talking about this, and all of a sudden the word recovery camino came together with what I was saying to him, and the light went on, and I started, I said, I got to make a phone call to my friend Mark. First, I gave him the opportunity because he was part of the conversation. He said, I don't have time to do it. I said, well, then if you don't mind, I'm going to call my friend Mark, and maybe we can bring people through a pilgrimage experience. Because recovery is not just going from no drinking or no drugging or no having a husband or wife that's an alcoholic and not knowing how to deal with it. Right in the beginning, recovery has to follow us through the whole lifetime. Yeah. And there's a lot of people.
Excuse me, well, Mark.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but we just have 1 minute before this shuts down. What I will ask you is to answer again, okay? If you don't mind.
No.
Sounds good.
Not at all.
So Bob, you were talking about the way that Recovery Camino started when you talked about the Buddhist monk about the Recovery Camino.
Yes, yes. So we put the words together. The words just fell together, and Recovery Camino. And of course, like a light bulb above me that goes on in the thoughts, I'm like, oh my Lord, I all of a sudden I start to see a group of people walking who's in recovery. And some people, they can be in recovery for 20 years or 30 years, but it doesn't mean that they're spiritually fit. And I have a man asking me every time I see him once a week, he goes, how's your spiritual fitness? And he's always challenging me with that. And I have to answer honestly. So the point is we're seeking spiritual fitness. And that was the primary goal. It doesn't matter how many years or months we've been in. We can be spiritually unfit. And when people are in that, sometimes it takes a little something to jog them out, to put them back on what we call the rail. You know?
One of the things that we offer to help with that, Guillermo, which is not typical, is that we prepare pilgrims for about 8 weeks before we go by getting them into the Camino spirit and also practicing daily prayer and meditation and walking. Mm-hmm. So we're using the Camino for Good app. We have an app that we walk with, and we're practicing together, being on pilgrimage, walking every day, reading text from our program and spiritual text, and just to put us on that path in the way of thinking about the Camino. So it's a body, mind, spirit preparation. We have a lot of people join us who have never done a multi-day trek and have never been. Some of them don't have passports, so they've never been involved in something like this, and it's a big change.
So yeah, let's go. Go ahead.
We use this book. This is one of our recovery books, the 12 steps and traditions. But we formulated the pilgrimage because the 12 steps of a recovery program it is a pilgrimage. We go from I'll read the first step. The first spiritual principle is honesty. And it says, we admitted that we were powerless over whatever it is, our wives drinking, our husbands drinking, my alcoholism, anything in life, and that my life has become unmanageable. So each week, for instance, this is the third week, Labette will talk about step 4 and 5. And step 4 is about courage. And, we can talk more about that. And step 5 is about integrity. So she will dovetail those two spiritual principles with pilgrimage, and how does she practice that in her life?
That's outstanding. So one thing that I really want to know, it's for a group like the one that you led onto the Camino. What is a day on the Camino for a group like that? Please.
Typical day. Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we very much like all the other pilgrims, we start the day with a quick breakfast, and we add to that an intention for the day. So our intention for the day might be spiritual principle of humility, and with that, we try to focus on that in our morning, just a few minutes, our morning meditation, our morning prayer. And then as we walk, we're also walking with some intentions that we have gathered from others who are suffering or who are in recovery, and try to keep them in our mind as we go, like a continual prayer as we walk. We stop and have lunch and snacks together. And of course, at the end of the day, we fall into a shower and a short rest before we have our evening activities. In the evening, we eat together and we have a meeting, which is similar to a normal 12-step meeting. Everyone will share. Maybe they'll share some highs and lows from the day. and then connect their share to the topic of that day. So that's really the only difference from a regular pilgrim.
That's beautiful.
And like somebody was saying the other day, there are, for Americans, we cannot find meetings on the pilgrimage.
Yeah.
And I didn't really need one, but sometimes I do need one, you know. So Mark mentioned the spiritual principle of humility. That's step 7. And step 7 says, humbly ask him, whatever God that people have, because they're all different, to remove our shortcomings. So we walk through the day with asking ourselves, what is our role in humility in our daily life before the Camino? And is there something I can ask my higher power to change when I get off the Camino, or even starting now? And then we have those meetings at night, and other people from other countries join us, and they're not in recovery. And they get very emotional when they hear a group of people who are in recovery talk about the things we talk about.
That's brilliant. That's really, really amazing. Now let's talk about the principles that are about to recover, the effects. So after some Caminos leading groups for recovery, so what are the biggest effects that you see on these pilgrims?
Yeah, that's another great question. So it's different for everyone. We do have kind of a verbal evaluation, and we have a written evaluation, and everybody's journaling, of course, on their own too. The main thing that I hear from people, and this will not be foreign to you, is that they have carried their Camino experience, that of being a pilgrim, into their daily lives. So they feel as if their life has become a pilgrimage, a search for connection and spiritual growth, self-transcendence, getting outside of oneself. And that is really the impetus, the push that people need.
Yeah.
If you think of it like a swing, to get them going, and then they can keep that momentum going throughout their lives, always thinking back to those lessons learned on the Camino, connections, staying connected to fellow pilgrims, and working towards whatever it is that they're working towards. In this case, many of our fellows towards recovery.
It's something like it's like the end of the Camino and the beginning of another Camino. That is how you arrive in Santiago, or in Finisterre, or in Shea, but then your really Camino starts when you arrive home, and try to put your thoughts, to put your life in the Camino on your daily life, and that is really, really amazing. It's a Camino, a way of life. So how emotional are the moments of arriving in Santiago?
Bob, go ahead.
Say the question again, please.
So how is arriving in Santiago with a group like this?
Mine is probably going to be different. I was not so impressed when I first got there. It was emotional. But
I felt the same on my first arrival, so that's normal.
Yes, and I'm gonna move this to Murcia, because when I first arrived there, it was too much for me, and I was very uncomfortable. I had to return to Murcia so that I could understand why I was so uncomfortable. And it was the spiritual. It was just spiritually very, very strong for me. But Santiago, it was amazing as a destination, and it was amazing as how motivated people were to build this cathedral. And I was amazed at the massiveness of it, the pillars and the people that were there. So I'm not trying to minimize how I felt, but I didn't understand it. I didn't quite understand it when the first time I was there. and then I walked to Finstad and Murcia after that. So I've been to Santiago, I think 4 times now, 4 times. And it's a lovely place, but I love the trail. I'm a pilgrim.
It's something. It's not where you went. It's all about the Camino. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a band. There's a band that I share this quote with all of our pilgrims. El camino es la meta. The walk, the way is the goal, not necessarily a cathedral. But
Right.
I think Bob hit it right that it's a great thing to work towards together, but it's not necessarily that people will have a magical moment when they arrive. Rather, being present to the magical moments along the way is the Camino.
Yeah, but I can really relate to that because of course I had some magical moments arriving in Santiago, mainly the last 2. But my first Camino, okay, I felt good. I felt happy, but it hasn't has that magical moment as so many people talk about it. But I guess as the moment that you will get more into the Camino, that could change a bit. So Mark, Bob, we are almost finishing here. But before I just want you for both of you to give us a message for the people that are in recovery and that know what is the Camino and maybe would like to join a group like yours to get to the Camino and to ask for help and stuff like that, please.
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, I would just say if there's any question or any motivation, any doubt, please join us. We have the online sessions. It's really, really, truly any form of recovery. If you're suffering from codependency in relationships, if you're suffering from negative thought addiction, food addiction, addiction to compulsive consumerism, all those things are things that the 12 steps and the 12 spiritual principles can help with. And to some extent, they fall, like I said before, it's almost a natural fit with the Camino. So what we offer is just a little bit of structure, a little bit of fellowship. It's completely free. We do take donations to support some of the work, but we offer everything as in recovery traditions. We have 12 traditions as well. We don't charge people. So I would say, come join us, go to our website and register, and we will send you our meeting link. You can join us for all of our meetings every Sunday evening, 4 p.m. our time, or I guess it's 9 p.m. It's at night in Europe.
Yeah.
But you're welcome to join us.
That's really, really amazing. So for finishing here, let's talk about your newest pilgrimage in May of 22. So what are the main purposes for this new this new group for this new pilgrimage, please?
What is the what? I'm sorry.
We're our pilgrimage.
Yeah.
We're going in Portugal, and Bob can tell you more about what we have planned.
Please talk about something about your new pilgrimage, about the Camino Portuguese that you led the group in May, please.
Yeah. So what we'll do is we get, bless you, we get people together from wherever they are, England, it doesn't matter, Germany or California, and we're setting up when to arrive. We'll have somebody there. We will end up in Porto, but we're going to start. What's the town? It's a little bit north of Porto.
Vila de Camino on the coast.
Yeah. So I did
Vila do Conde.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did the coastal route, which we will do in September.
Yeah.
I've done the coastal route with the Espiritual.
Yeah.
And so this time we're going to go inland. We'll do a little bit maybe on the coast.
Yeah.
But again, every day is going. There are a lot of people that are really suffering out in this world, and there is a way out. And pilgrimage. How many people have been on this pilgrimage that are looking to lose something or to gain something? I don't know why I went, but I gained a lot. But a lot of people are going to lose things, you know, they'll bring the ashes of their loved ones and put them away, you know, until they're gone in Muksia. And then the last one, a lot of people find resolution. So that's what we're looking to do. We're looking to help people who are suffering. And that's the bottom line.
Logistically, Bob, that's awesome. Like Bob got the perfect picture. And logistically, we will be walking from there for 12 days.
Thank you.
And we're taking the central route. So
Best option.
you know, the traditional central route.
Yes.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, Bob, Mark, thank you so much for your job, for your work, for this. Thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed like I did. Thank you for your work, and I really hope to meet you in a few months on the Camino.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for helping us with our message.